Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at our second forum for the core area. We're going to wait about 30 seconds before we get going, just to give folks a little extra time to make sure they're connected and ready to go. And we'll connect with you in a couple of minutes. Hello, and welcome to our second Core Area Forum, our fall forum. My name is Kelly Scher. I'm the Deputy City Manager of Environment and Infrastructure with the City of London. And I'm also the current chair of the Core Area Steering Committee. So that's the group responsible for implementing the Core Area Action Plan and managing other concerns in the core internal to the City of London. Today, staff from the City of London and London Police Services will be updating you on the activities that are taking place in the core, as well as our progress from the last time we met. Please note that we are recording this meeting and it will be posted on getinvolved.london.ca/core area in the future, so you can look back at it or share it with other folks if you wish. The presentation will be followed by a question and answer period. You're welcome to use the Q&A function on Zoom anytime during the presentations to submit a question, and we'll answer all of them at the very end. So I'm going to start us off with a very short overview on some of our general progress in the Core Area Action Plan since May. So since we met in May, a couple of important things have happened, more internal to City Hall, but they're important for our work in the core. First of all, Council approved the refreshed Core Area Action Plan in May, so May 18th. That went to City Council, and that included some refreshed timelines and resourcing for the actions that were approved and funded in the original plan, as well as some brand new initiatives like bystander training and Project Clean Slate. And you'll be hearing a bit more about Project Clean Slate from one of my colleagues tonight. And the city has also officially implemented our restructuring. So May 24th, our new structure took place, and that created a brand new work unit in planning and economic development, bringing together urban regeneration, the ambassador program, and the Dundas Place manager. We're working right now to get a director in place for this new team, and I think that's going to be a real help in terms of advancing work and efforts in the core. Certainly a message we heard loud and clear as well from businesses and stakeholders. So there's also been some positive change on the COVID front. COVID-19, as everyone knows, created disproportionate impacts on urban core areas in particular, including here in London. But we are seeing a lessening of restrictions, including the removal of capacity limits as recently as this past Monday. It's exciting to see events and activities happening in the core again. So the London Knights are welcoming fans again. We're planning some exciting activations in Old East related to the end of construction for next month. And we're starting to see office workers returning back, which is great because that gives us more people on the streets at lunch and after work as well. We can go to the next slide. So this just provides a general overview of our progress. So in July 2020, we were 77% on target, 14% complete, 9% caution. We are now on target at 54% because those have mostly shifted to complete at 43%. Just noting where things have been completed, that doesn't mean the work has stopped necessarily. It means that the work to launch perhaps a new program or service within the city has been implemented, and it's now part of how we're doing things on a day-to-day basis. So while we've made progress, we do know that the situation in the core still needs our careful and close attention, and we need to work together on both the immediate and longer term actions required to ensure that issues in the core are continuing to be addressed and that we're capitalizing on opportunities as things reopen. We've also added a number of new things that were not part of the original action plan, so that includes Project Clean Slate, the bystander training I mentioned, some enhanced metrics, and we're working also on some resident engagement strategies too. With that, I'm happy to introduce our first speaker. Craig Cooper is our Director of Housing and Stability Services at the city, and he'll be providing an update on his team's effort with a particular focus on the fall and winter services they're going to be providing.
Great, thanks, Kelly, and good evening, everybody. Happy to be here tonight to chat a bit about some of the work that our Housing Stability Services team has undertaken this past summer and are continuing to take on into the fall and into the winter. So a little bit of a conversation around, that we, especially my Housing Stability Services team, are really working across city services in the enterprise-wide approach. And a lot of the work that we do on a daily basis does rely and does require partnerships to be successful. And so as we work with partners across the city and specifically in the city, some of the work that we're doing on our coordinated informed response relies on multiple areas within the city to be supportive and to be successful. Our winter response plan that was released onto committee and going to committee next week relied on a significant input from a number of service areas in our city. Are the affordable housing builds that are happening on Baseline right now, as well as in Thompson Road in the future, are really key outcomes of a great enterprise-wide approach to look at all the challenges affiliated with the housing crisis currently and the work we need to do to continue to build housing that is affordable, as well as our head lease pilot. That's coming to council later in or early in 2022, as we look to provide committee and council with lessons learned and sort of a roll-up of that pilot project. Again, the establishment of that program, as well as the continued operation of that program, really highlights the great work that we are able to do as an enterprise here at the City of London. So I'm going to move into some of the challenges that we still see, and that I'm sure every one of you see every single day within the core. But we recognize too that with the closure of a number of spaces as a result of the pandemic and sort of that continued closure, we're seeing a lot more individuals involved in street activity, hanging out in the street, and really has left more people not able to access other services in our community, and really left them no choice but to kind of hang out on the streets. So as we see that happening, we also recognize that there are a growing number of individuals experiencing homelessness. Our by names list has increased pretty significantly since the pandemic has started, as well as what we're seeing with unsheltered homelessness here in the city. Last year in the fall, we had around 75 to 80 individuals that we routinely engaged with that were experiencing unsheltered homelessness. We now see that to be in about the 120 range. So there's a significant increase for homelessness and unsheltered homelessness in our community. And we know that the COVID pandemic has had a pretty significant impact on that. In addition to that, we see, and probably you saw in the paper this afternoon, the increase in average market rent in the city. One bedroom apartment now is going for well over $1,300, and it's just the affordability for individuals on fixed income is very challenging. And so as we work with community agencies, as we work at the city to try and support individuals, we recognize there's that economic disparity for a number of individuals, and we're working together through various programs to try and help solve that. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we move on. So I also want to touch real quickly on the challenges that we were experiencing working with various institutions. So your hospitals, your corrections facilities, we've seen pretty significant improvement on that. We've been able to get more upstream on discharge planning with both of those institutional type agencies, and really see some solutions that people aren't being discharged to unsheltered homelessness. Now, we do see it still happen. We've just been able to improve that work and improve that relationship so that we see it happening less often. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also highlight the opioid crisis that we're still seeing in the city and across the country, to be honest. It is an evolving challenge, and people that are experiencing addictions issues are really struggling to find resources, to find services and crisis supports in the moment. And so we are working with a number of partners to try and come up with some unique ideas to understand the current resources available to people and make sure people are getting connected as quickly as possible to services. So going on to the next slide, we're going to work through a bit of a poll question, if you'd indulge me. So when you encounter an individual experiencing homelessness and in need of in-the-moment supports, what do you tend to do to contact support or services? So I'm looking for a single answer here. Do you call London Police Services, or LPS, or 911? Do you submit a request online through the Service London portal at service.london.ca? Do you email our coordinated informed response at service@london.ca? Do Do you call Coordinated Informed Response at the 519-661-2489 number, or do you call London Cares at 519-667-2273? Now, there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just interested to see what folks on around the table here today do in those situations. Now, with this dead silence, I was supposed to tell a joke, but I don't think I'm going to do that tonight. So, all right, so we're seeing about half call London Cares and half call London Police Service. And so I think, as I mentioned, there's no real right or wrong answer with this. I think it depends on the situation and the scenario that you're dealing with in the moment. Individuals that are challenged and need emergency service, absolutely 911 is the appropriate response. But those individuals that are asking for help, London Cares is definitely a good starting point. They will help get people connected, but also in emailing our service@london.ca email does create a ticket that will allow our outreach teams as well as our coordinated informed response teams to come out and connect with both the business owner and the individual. So if you're never sure, we do have that online portal and we do have that email for maybe non-emergency type calls if you're interested in looking for some support. Speaking of supports, we're going to talk for a couple minutes about what the city has been doing both recently and then continued on into the fall. And so you've probably heard a little bit in the news in the last month or so that the city is undertaking a request for proposals through our procurement process for our shelter system, for our housing stability bank, as well as our outreach system. And so the emphasis on that is to understand and sort of make changes to our system that align with our housing stability action plan. And so we're really looking to focus our shelters and focus the work we do, or continue to focus the work we do for housing first and a housing focused response. And so what we're trying to do is get further upstream. We're trying to reduce the stays for people at shelter, try to reduce the need for people to access shelter, and then really make, if those people need to access shelter, we're really trying to make that stay a lot shorter than what it might have been in the past. And so this is an enterprise-wide approach, but we rely on a lot of our areas, and it is really a systems response to this. It may seem like we're just looking at shelters and changing that, but shelters play a key role at the front end of our system when people need emergency housing. And so as we want to make sure that we have all our programs aligned for the vision of the city as we start to roll out further programs. So I want to talk a little bit about the resting space program that we've implemented as part of the Core Area Action Plan. We currently have 30 spaces available, 10 for women and 20 that are being provided at a mixed space. We have been working very closely with those partner agencies to operationalize that and recognize the challenges that we've been experiencing so far with COVID. So I mentioned a little earlier about our head lease program. So far, we've had 15 individuals housed in the 10 units of our housing, our head lease program. And like I say, we're expecting the results of that pilot sometime in Q2 to go to committee and to council. So some of the work that we've done as well is to increase shelter capacity through March 31st, 2022, and specifically at one of our Center of Hope shelters to support women. We've been able to increase and recognize that there's a significant impact and challenge for women, both fleeing violence and just women's homelessness in general. And as a council strategic priority, we are working to increase and work with our local agencies to support women better. The council has endorsed our Housing Stability Services recommendations to continue offering our social distancing hotel rooms. Although shelters are starting to get back to regular capacity, with the increase in homelessness, we do still need that response, and council has endorsed us to continue that till the end of March. As well, we've, as mentioned, we started 10 additional resting spaces specifically for women at my sister's place. That was recently approved by council in May of this year, and those beds are all operational and being used at full capacity every single day. So I'm going to speak a little bit too briefly about some of the additional work that we've done since May. Predominantly, we really focused on and heard from individuals as part of our Housing Stability Action Plan that people need help to get housed and maintain housing and remain housed. And that's that housing stability terminology that we use on the housing stability services. And an important aspect of that is case management and individual supports. And so council's endorsed some additional supports for our community through certain community agencies to assist individuals that are on our by name list on our coordinated access list and part of some of the services to find housing and retain housing. And in addition to that caseworker support, we recognize there was an economic gap. And so council also endorsed some additional housing allowances for our programs to be able to support individuals with the ever increasing cost of rent. So we also want to touch real quickly on our coordinated access. A report went to committee last month and to council recently. Feel free to check that report out. It's a great overview of the work that my team has been doing to try and help centralize and make access to supports for individuals much more transparent. I appreciate the city is a very large machine, and it's hard sometimes to understand where to go and where to call. And so when individuals are experiencing homelessness or at risk of housing or losing their housing stability, there's now a single number that people can call, 661 home, and they will get connected to one of our case managers and caseworkers to try and assist them in retaining their housing, and where they can't retain housing, divert them from shelter, and where we can't do that, access emergency shelter, and then hopefully eventually get permanently housed. So we're making it a little bit easier for folks to make calls to us. We've received over 3,300 calls this year, so it's very, very busy time right now in our area. So moving on to the next slide, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the issues and the social challenges that I think a lot of businesses have been experiencing over the last little while, and the COVID pandemic has only exacerbated that situation. I appreciate that it's been a very challenging trek for many, and we do appreciate the support and the commitment that you make, that we're continuing to make for the businesses in the core as well. Again, I want to thank everybody that's on this call and all the businesses on this call personally. I know it's a very challenging time, and you do so much for our community and so much for London. I just want to take a moment and thank you very much. So with that, that's my time, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave O'Brien. He's our Director of Emergency Management and Security Services. Our titles are never short anymore. They're very long, but turning it over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Craig. Like Craig, I'd like to thank everybody for inviting me out to speak tonight on a couple of projects that we are working on in the core area. First one I'm going to speak about is the Core Area Security Audit. So this particular audit is part of the Core Area Action Plan and is currently underway. You may have had the opportunity to interact with some of the consultants that are directly involved in completing the audit as they make their way around the core area, doing an environmental scan, and speaking with folks that are experiencing the downtown area, both during the day and at night. The security audit itself is primarily focusing on the physical environment, and it's looking at ways to improve the security and safety of the area. It's not only focused, though, just solely on the physical environment. We're taking what's called an intersectional approach to this audit, which is a very unique sort of way of doing things. And what that means is that we're looking at the space not in the traditional sense of a security audit of just, walking down the street and seeing what lighting improvements might need to be made, but looking at the environment from different perspectives, such as a gender perspective, a sexual identity perspective, an ethnic perspective, and what that streetscape might look like from the different viewpoints of those individuals. So with that, we will be also receiving recommendations around potential programming and other things that could improve the safety as part of this particular audit. We expect the audit will be completed sometime before the end of this year, likely no later than December. We will then work with the consultants as they prioritize recommendations for improvements of the safety in the core area. And we will start implementation and moving those recommendations forward in the new year. So you can expect that the other unique thing, I guess, about the audit is it doesn't just apply to public spaces. It also includes private spaces, private properties, and the consultants will be providing the recommendations in a priority order. So the recommendations that they see as most important will be at the top of the list, and we'll make our way down through those recommendations. You can go on to the next slide there, Penny. So the other piece that is important around this particular piece is the funding associated to the recommendations. So City Council has passed money for the implementation of the recommendations over the next 4 years, and we'll be utilizing that money to fund the recommendations that come out of the audit. As I said, we anticipate the audit implementation on the recommendations will start sometime around January, February of next year. Moving on, we'll talk about a second project that we're working on, and it's called the Spotlight Program. This program will be rolled out in the next couple of weeks, and you'll see more information from the city in relation to this. Spotlight Program is based on a program out of the United States where closed circuit television or camera systems were identified, and a program was set up to ensure that logos were placed on both public and private properties where these systems existed, partly to deter people who may have ill intent around that area and dissuade them from behaving or acting out because the presence of the camera systems. It also provides the opportunity for London Police Service, in the event that they're investigating or responding to a crime in progress or a crime that has occurred, the opportunity to potentially review recordings and get evidence that would assist them in their investigation. The overall program purpose is deterrence, and some of the research out of the United States is showing that it can be helpful by identifying this to folks, as I said, that are have negative intent to deter them. The program will be a program that you can register online through the city website for, and what will happen is once you register that you have a system, city staff will come out and meet with you, explain the program in a little bit more detail, provide you a sticker that you can place at your business or your residence that identifies that there is CTV present. And then we will be monitoring to see what happens in that area with respect to further criminal activity and that sort of thing. So more detail to come on this particular project, I would say in the next 2 weeks. And we encourage everybody who does have these systems to work with us and register for the program so we can see how well our experience is compared to the United States related to this type of program. That's all I have for tonight, and I will pass it on now to Sergeant Mark McGugan with London Police Service, who is going to talk to you about the COAST program.
Thanks, Dave, and good evening to everyone. Just go to the next slide, please. So the COAST program, COAST stands for Community Outreach and Support Team, and what is it? It's community-led, and it's a police-supportive initiative. We launched in April of this year. We've launched with the Canadian Mental Health Association out of Middlesex, St. Joseph's Healthcare, Middlesex London Paramedic Services, and the London Police Service. And what we do is we pair an officer with a member of one of the other agencies, and they go out and work. Our idea is to go out and provide support, guidance, and counseling, assistance to those in need in our community, be it homeless, addictive, even depression, suicidal tendencies, stuff like that. We will go out and deal with them and get them to the right agency that they need to be with. Our officers are in plain clothes. We drive a plain unmarked vehicle. Our officers do have use of force, and we're with our community partner. We're identified by a light blue or I guess a pale blue shirt with khaki pants when we go around, and we're moving in the community a little bit better now than we were before. Excuse me, we're averaging about 40 calls a day, and a lot of those calls tend to be phone call follow-ups where we'll go and deal with somebody on one day and then do multiple phone follow-ups as the week progresses to make sure they're getting the help that they need or reaching out to the supports that they need. So, the next one, please. We want to have regular and routine interactions with the individuals in our community who deal with serious mental health issues. And I'm sure, as everybody else has pointed out, there's a number of people downtown that are experiencing mental health issues, as well as homelessness and addictions. What we do is we support these individuals getting to the agency that will best deal with them, be it even shelters for nights or addiction services. We're supported by our community healthcare partners in helping our individuals who are living with mental health and mental illness and specific treatment and care plans, and providing early and proactive crisis intervention. Right now, as I said, we have 3 teams of 2 working, and we're basically covering the entire city. As you can tell, it's a lot of work to be done, and we've just started out. So we're into a 1-year pilot project that comes up in April, and will be studied by Carleton University to determine what our next steps are and how it's impacting all 4 agencies that we're dealing with. So next slide, please. We provide the safety and security and for the community, including the individual being supported. One of the things we try and do by being in plain clothes and having a plain vehicle is to lower the stigma of the mental health or any associated illnesses. And our healthcare community partners and our partners at large are able to get in contact with the proper, again, services that need to be, the person or client needs to be dealt with. So the police are there, and we've been asked, why are the police there? There's lots of reasons, obviously. The security, safety and security, we do have our use of force with us, including our firearm. As well as police are the ones that can actually do the apprehensions under the Mental Health Act. We're the only ones who can do the actual formal apprehension and take people to hospital when that's necessary. But we also can prevent the unnecessary apprehensions by taking the people to the agencies that they need to go through. Because some of the younger officers tend to just take them down to the hospital because that's what they're dealt with. Being trained and with our community partners, it allows us to take them to, instead of taking them to the hospital and taking up the hospital's time, it allows us to take them directly to an agency and deal with a solution, deal with a problem, and come up with solutions as we go there. Our goal is to improve the experience with the individual. If we do have to apprehend them, it's a softer approach. And again, we're not a replacement for the mobile response team. Next slide, please. I'm sure there'll be questions at the end. If you have any questions, bring them up at the end. I'll be happy to answer them. But I'd like to turn you over now to Sergeant Mike Patio, the London Police Service, Downtown Community Foot Patrol Unit. Mike.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for attending. I'm Mike Patio. I'm one of the sergeants with our downtown foot patrol unit. I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight to speak briefly about a project that we finalized in the spring of this year, along with a project that we've currently been undertaking since July of this year. Could have the next slide. So the spring project was Project Custos, which essentially employed a 24/7 approach to foot patrols downtown, which we've never traditionally had. So we had assistance from some of our patrol sections, and they would send out officers in the overnight hours. Had some really good results. I wanted to share those with everybody. So year over year, from 20 to 21, during the time of this project, we experienced a 23% decrease in commercial break and enter occurrences, and a 38% decrease in thefts from motor vehicles. Some of the target crimes we were looking for were the overnight break and enters, as well as property damages. So very pleased with the results from that project. And as of April 11th of this year, total property crime occurrences were at the lowest weekly rate that we had seen in all of 20 and 21. So just wanted to share that with everybody. And moving on to present day, we're currently running what we call a prolific offender project. The genesis of this was our crime analyst kind of determined the 15 top criminal offenders that were operating in what we call 1 sector and 2 sector, which are just geographical areas that patrol officers use in the city of London. Our analyst determined the top 15 based on the criteria of those committing violent offenses, along with property damage occurrences. So no simple thefts, it had to have kind of a higher threshold. The Crown Attorney's Office was approached and agreed that they would take a stricter, more hardline approach when dealing with those 15 individuals that were identified when it came time for bail court, and there'd be more of a consistent effort to try and keep them in custody, thus lowering the crime rate downtown. Next slide, please. So essentially what we used was what's called a carrot and stick approach. We would approach when our officers on foot downtown would see one of these 15 individuals, we would approach them and contact Project Impact members, which is outreach workers hired by the City of London. We would essentially meet up with those social workers and talk to the offender and basically give them the option, right? If you want to get on board with social services that's being offered presently, the police would then kind of take a softer line. If they refuse the help of the social agencies, we would then advise them that they're going to be going to jail for every single offense they commit. And we've been making some strong efforts to keep them in custody. Many know downtown right now that currently when we catch somebody in the act of a criminal offense, we often arrest them and they're released right at the scene. So it's a bit of a different way of doing things. Since July, we've had nothing but positive outreach interactions with these individuals. And I'm happy to say everybody on that list, the original list, agreed to accept social supports. Next slide. And for this graph, the blue bar at the end of the graph represents the time that this project's been running. There's obviously a bit of fluctuation, and that has to do with a number of different factors, but that's kind of week 40, I believe, was right around the first or second week of this month in October. So you can see we do have a nice, it did kind of spike up again, but now we are kind of on a decline again. Next slide. And I threw this last graph in just to kind of highlight some of the prolific offenders and what previous to this kind of project, the amount of criminal charges they were amassing. So I took out names, but on the far left-hand side, the column, you can see one individual amassed 53 criminal charges since January 1st of 2019. You've got some other ones with 17 and 18. And if you go to the far side on the right-hand column, you can see the amount of charges those individuals have now amassed, which is far decreased. So we're very happy with that. The project's still underway, and I think it's been extended to the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to sharing those results with you at the end of the next, I guess, spring meeting for 2022. And I'll pass it over to Ryan Craven, who's with the City of London's Core Area Programs.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Mike, and thank you to everyone who is sharing your evening with us this evening. Really appreciate it. So yeah, the first program I'm going to talk to you about is called the Clean Slate program, and this was a partnership between the City of London and Youth Opportunities Unlimited. And so youth who were participating in YOU programs had the opportunity to work for the summer, and their job was basically to help clean up the garbage that ends up on private property that may not have had anything to do with the private property. And yeah, it was very successful. They cleaned up hundreds of little garbage bags like that in the picture, and they seemed to have a really good time doing it, and they got lots and lots of positive comments from businesses. I don't know if any businesses on the call tonight saw them and thanked them, but they really appreciated all the positive comments they got from businesses. And just one really quick anecdote about sort of the impact. So this is obviously kind of one of these integrated programs that has multiple benefits, one of them being the increasing the cleanliness, and the other being given opportunities to youth who could use some opportunities. And so one of the young people who took on this job, basically they came to YOU on the brink of homelessness. They were able to get employed in this job, and they loved it. They thrived. They were dancing when they were doing the work. They were kind of competing with their colleagues to who could pick up the most garbage. They really thrived. And YOU was through this. YOU was able to help them get permanent employment, and now they're not on the brink of homelessness. So yeah, really cool stuff. And this program is still going, and we are currently working on continuing it into 2022 based on the success. Next slide, please. So we did a lot of programming in the core this summer based on direction and funding from the Core Area Action Plan and the London Community Recovery Network. And I first just want to thank, before I talk about what we did and how we did it, I want to thank Mike, Dave, Mark, and Craig for all of their work that they and their teams did. We were quite, we needed their help a lot, and it was really appreciated. So yeah, we worked with a lot of different partners. Basically, at a high level, what we did was we established a core area activation coordination team, and this was a lot of the different kind of bigger partners who have funding or space that could be activated outdoors. We really wanted to do what we could to safely invite people into the core and give people reasons to come and try to pleasantly surprise people who came for other reasons. So we did stuff all over the core area, Old East Village, downtown, and Richmond Row, and you can just see some of the pictures. It was a wide variety of programming, and I hope you got to see some of it. And we are continuing to, or currently preparing for 2022, and so watch out for opportunities to get involved with that. We were trying to be very responsive in terms of working with groups that came to us. A lot of groups did throughout the summer come to us and say, hey, I see what's going on. Can we participate? And as much as possible, we took that opportunity. And just before moving on, I would like to say that we are also currently working on a holiday market based on direction and funding from the London Community Recovery Network. This is going to be for the 4 preceding weeks before Christmas. So starting on November 26th or 27th in conjunction with a whole bunch of fun stuff that's going to be happening in the core that weekend. So watch out for more details on that. It's going to be on Dundas Place. So the last program I'm going to be talking to you about is the Ambassador Program. And if you're not aware of what this is something that was, again, coming out of the Core Area Action Plan. It's common in a lot of the American cities, kind of around the Great Lakes. It's heavily, brightly uniformed staff who are walking the streets sort of from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week, and who are doing a wide variety of things, basically kind of at a high level, trying to be friendly, happy, fostering a welcoming and friendly atmosphere in the core, answering questions for people who might not be clear on how to pay for parking, or might be confused, or might not be sure where the restaurant is they want to go. They're going to be sort of there to provide a friendly support for that. They're also going to be identifying service requests. If a garbage can is broken, they're going to be there and trying to deal with that as quickly as they can. They're going to be fostering positive relationships with businesses, kind of popping in, saying, hey, how's it going? Anything we can do for you today? That kind of thing. And also they're going to be involved in supporting activations and events and kind of bringing more of the fun stuff to the core. So they are actually, we've hired 10 and they're going to be starting on next Monday. And for the first couple of weeks, there's going to be, a lot of training, and hoping to have them ready for the Old East Village reopening celebration on Dundas Street on November 13th and Santa Claus Parade. And yeah, the other thing I just, before we go to the question, just want to also say, we something that we did since the spring was kind of, we opened the Dundas Place Field House, which is kind of a working title. We're considering changing that name, but for now we're calling it the Dundas Place Field House, which is sort of a kind of an operations center for the activations that we're doing, and also public washrooms. And that was a big amount of work that we did this summer. And yeah, so now we're operating the public washrooms on Dundas Place from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. And that's a big part of my work right now. So yeah, we're going to go to a question. And the question is, what types of outdoor programming would you like to see more of in the core next summer? Please select all that apply. So that's live music, festivals, outdoor movies, yoga and dance classes, mural paintings, and visual arts. And the results, live music wins again. This is great. Thank you everyone for indulging us in the question, and I will throw it to our next presenter, which is Britt O'Hagan, Manager, Community Planning, Urban Design, and Heritage.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this evening session. So I'm lucky enough to share some information on 2 of the programs that came out of the London Community Recovery Network that have kind of been going on this summer, and sharing some success stories here. So the first one is the Patio Improvement Program. So this was approved and funded through LCRN. $100,000 was invested, and the program was a one-time launch, and it was had overwhelming success, and all of the funding was committed during that first round. So over 50 businesses were able to participate. The program allowed those businesses to purchase new equipment, furniture, enclosures, and anything to help revitalize their existing patios or create new patios across 5 BIAs. So as you can see here, the core area was well represented in those new and improved patios that were able to be established through this. And there was also some funding set aside for businesses that were within construction zones, because obviously the core area is undergoing a lot of construction. So some patio improvement funding was set aside for businesses within those areas that couldn't have a patio this year. I do have a couple slides of some photos of some of the great new and improved patios, and hopefully everyone had a chance to check them out during the summer. But one good thing is all of this new equipment and furniture will be an investment that these businesses can use well beyond this year and into future seasons. So it was a really successful program, and looking forward to continuing patios in the years to come. And one of the things to really note is the hard work that the BIAs did, the 5 BIAs did in administering this program and working closely with city staff. And we have a quote here from Barb Malley from downtown London, and she confirmed that they were able to support opening up an additional 30% more patios in the downtown within their BIA this past year, which is quite a significant amount. And it's really been able to help out these local businesses at a time when we were restricting internal use of a lot of restaurants, and it's really helped continue business as best we can during it. So it was really a successful program so far. And the next program that I wanted to talk about was the recovery grant, also approved and funded through the London Community Recovery Network. And city staff in the core area and urban regeneration area have been working quite busily to make sure that all of these grants were provided. So the recovery grant is a free money add-on to our existing incentive programs to upgrade building facades, as well as health and safety measures inside of buildings, and really just refresh buildings. And so $250,000 was committed to the program, and again, overwhelming support and interest in the program, and all of the funding was committed in the first round. Over 50 properties submitted projects that were funded through the program. And it takes a little bit to complete the actual work, but about 55% of those projects are complete now. The program was available, or the grant was available across 5 community improvement plan areas, including the downtown and Old East Village. And the number of projects are well represented in the core area proportionally. About 65% of those projects are happening in the core. So we have some great examples on the next slide of some of the improvements. There was quite a bit of them across the different community improvement plan areas. But facades was a big one, and painting and taking care of graffiti or vandalism that may have happened. Also installing safety and security measures like gates and refreshing building facades, and also health and safety adaptations within buildings to help support social distancing and other needs that have arisen. So the recovery grant was really quite was applied to a very wide, diverse number of projects, and was, I think, quite useful for a lot of the businesses. And again, our BIA partners are instrumental in helping to support these programs and get the word out. And the Downtown London and Old East Village BIAs have been huge supporters of the programs and really helped to administer them and raise awareness amongst businesses. And so here's just a quote from Jen Pastorius from the Old East Village BIA. And she mentions that the funding creates opportunity to address things like repairs and improvements that allowed the businesses to just really focus on what's important and focusing on the commercial activity and the recovery of their businesses. So it's really kind of provide that extra support that they may not have been able to undertake some of these projects during this trying time. So I wanted to just take a moment to plug, although these were both one-time programs over this summer, spring and summer, there are still existing ongoing loan and forgivable loan programs that are available to businesses within the downtown and Old East Village community improvement plan areas. So there is a facade improvement loan, as well as an upgrade to building code loan that are available. And subject to eligibility, please feel free to reach out to your local BIA or to planning@london.ca to find out more about those programs and how they can support your businesses. And I think we're going to move on to a poll question about another great project that came out of the London Community Recovery Network. And that is the Downtown Wayfinding Plan. So the Downtown Wayfinding Plan is a strategy for coordinating signage to help people navigate to and through the downtown from a variety of ways. And so this question is just looking for your feedback on what do you feel are the most challenging parts of navigating the downtown area? Navigating and getting to the downtown, navigating and getting through the downtown, finding your destination, finding the primary entrance to your destination, finding vehicle parking, or other. And you can share your answer on getinvolved.london.ca. So we'll take a moment and see what the answers are here. Perfect. Oh, a little bit different than this morning's session, and navigating and getting through the downtown, which hopefully that this downtown wayfinding plan will help solve a little bit. And as I mentioned on the getinvolved.london.ca website, we do have a full survey. So we'd greatly appreciate if you could go over there and answer some more questions related to this project. And hopefully we'll have some really good information to go forward with in the future with that. And I will pass it over to our last presenter, Natalie Wakabayashi, the Director of Culture and Entertainment Tourism with Tourism London.
Thanks, Britt, and good evening, everyone. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Tourism London is the city's destination marketing organization. We collaborate to create and promote innovative experiences that make for lasting and unforgettable memories here in the Forest City. I'm going to start mine a little bit different. So I'm going to start with the poll right off the top and get us going. So what I'm really curious about is I'm curious to know, what type of tourist are you? Are you a sports enthusiast? Are you a history buff? Maybe a cultural connoisseur, the ultimate foodie? Maybe you're that outdoor adventurer. What type of tourist are you? What do we have? Ooh, okay, a little bit more spread out than it was this morning. I like to see it. And I'm sure there's some that would have chose multiple categories, but I love to see the cultural connoisseur right up front. So as it was mentioned, I'm Director of Culture and Entertainment Tourism for Tourism London. So I oversee that portfolio, but I also oversee our marketing and our branding strategy. The tourism industry, which is normally a flourishing economic driver in London, it employs thousands and it supports numerous local partners and businesses. It has been devastated by the pandemic, and it's been extremely difficult on our industry. It's often said in the tourism realm that it is the hardest hit and maybe the last to recover. So last summer, we applied for and received regional recovery and relief funding through the federal government to fund marketing campaigns to kind of jumpstart tourism and recovery in our city. When you think about it, really, tourism is, we're in the business of heads in beds. So if people stay a single night in London, their spending is multiplied as compared to just a day trip. Think about the meals, activities they may be participating in, accommodation stays, things like that. In the fall of 2020, when we launched our program, the overnight stays in London were at an all-time low. So using these recovery funds, we piloted an initiative called Stay a Little Longer. With this pilot project, Londoners, as well as those in neighboring communities, were encouraged to book a minimum 2-night stay at a participating hotel. The guests paid for the first night, and Tourism London actually paid for the second night. That ensured that the accommodation partner received the full value of the stay. The campaign was extremely well received by the community and by our accommodation partners. It resulted in just around 700 stays and almost 1,400 then room nights booked in a 6-week period. So a pretty short period of time for that many stays. There were 20 different accommodation partners that participated in the pilot project, with many more wishing that they had done so. But unfortunately, London entered the control red zone, so the campaign ended earlier than we expected, but we received a lot of feedback. So we received inquiries from the community and accommodation partners as to when the program would run again, or if we would run the program again. We also, looked at it and realized that while it's really drawing and helping recovery for our accommodation partners, it doesn't help all of our other partners in tourism and hospitality. So we knew that we needed to look at other ways to do this. We also needed a little bit more flexibility in case we enter into another lockdown. So as we looked at our 2021 initiatives, it was clear that Stay a Little Longer would be a great fit for our marketing strategy, but we knew, like I said, we needed some changes. With this new campaign, Londoners, as well as those in neighboring communities, were encouraged to book a minimum 2-night stay again at a participating London hotel, but this time they would pay for both of the nights. But as an extra incentive, Tourism London would give them a prepaid Tourism London Visa card, which I happen to have right here. So this Visa card had $100 on it, or has $100 on it. And the card can be used at any business, but it is geo-targeted to only be used within the City of London limits. There's no additional cost to the customer using the card, and there's no additional cost to the merchant who may be accepting the card. We've taken care of absolutely all of those costs. But by geo-targeting the Visa cards, we're ensuring that the money spent stays within our local community and really drives recovery, but that it's also spread beyond just the hotels to support other sectors and multiple London businesses. The promotion is scheduled to run for 6 months. It began in July, but it's looking like we may actually increase it. What we anticipated was 3,000 hotel bookings and 6,000 room night stays with this initiative, which would equate to more than $350,000 between our marketing dollars and the Visa dollars spent back in the community. The program received an additional influx of funding through the London Community Recovery Network that the city put out, which added an additional 1,000 hotel stays and more than $100,000 in Visa card dollars spent back in our community. So to date, like I mentioned, it is selling really well, but it's not quite as well as what we thought. There was a lot of discounted leisure travel and even some business travel at the tail end of this summer, which is a great thing for our city, but it meant that not as many of these packages are being scooped up. So we're looking at extending the program into 2022, especially for those trickier months between January, and March or April, when people tend to travel a little bit less. On top of the marketing campaign that we ran that encouraged guests to book their stays, we also launched a marketing campaign for businesses and for our tourism partners to get involved in the Stay a Little Longer program and show that their business accepted the Visa cards, and maybe even helped us promote the fact that this promotion was happening. So for the business owners that are on this call today, we created a number of assets and key messages that you could download if you'd like to use them. There are print posters, social media posts, web graphics, and more, and they're all available at londontourism.ca/stay-downloads. It's right there on your screen. You'll also find generic messages and graphics, as well as key messages and specific graphics under the eat, drink, shop, and play categories. That way there's a specific call to action. If you're a restaurant, you might want the eat or the drink one on there. If you're a shop, you may want, or a store, you may want a shop one up there. If you're an activities place, you may want a play poster on your walls letting people know. On top of our Stay a Little Longer program, Tourism London's been involved in a number of city initiatives. So we partnered with Dundas Place, as you heard Ryan Craven talk about earlier, to highlight core experiences happening in London. The blog lived on our tourism site, talking about the weekly activities that anyone could participate in that were, most of them actually, free of charge. We then used social media to push out what was unique each week and really drive individuals down to the core, highlighting the artists or the musicians or the dance groups or the really fun activities that Ryan and his team helped to program. We've also partnered with businesses and BIAs to tell their stories through videos as an effort to drive recovery. There's something to be said about making a connection with a business owner and seeing that connection through a video, or feeling that connection through a video, and then wanting to go out and support your local community. If you haven't seen the new Only in OEV video that the team over there did, I would really encourage you to check it out. It is absolutely fantastic, and they're doing some really great things. Finally, Tourism London and the 5 BIAs partnered together on a London Community Recovery Network business case, and we were rewarded a significant amount of money that will be spent over the next 3 years. This initiative, which now has a title of Find It in London, which you can see on your screen, is a support local marketing and promotional campaign that really all businesses can engage in. There's no cost to participate, but the campaign includes storytelling through video and photography. It includes a passport program that will launch in the new year, a holiday gift guide for this holiday season, website presence, and more. And you can learn more about it by visiting finditinlondon.ca. Very last thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that London is very proud to be hosting the 2021 Canadian Country Music Week and CCMA Awards show at the end of November. Prior to COVID, major events and even smaller scaled events was a major tourism initiative and strategic priority for us. But when COVID happens and everything shuts down, it's a little difficult to run events. We're really proud that we're going to be able to put this one on. We're really excited that capacity limits have changed, including the announcement last night by Minister McLeod. So for those of you who love country music, tickets are on sale now and can be purchased on the Budweiser Gardens website. For business owners, I think it's a great reminder that we will have an influx of visitors into our city and specifically into our core at the end of November, who will be looking for things to eat, drink, shop, play, see, and do. And I think while they're here, let's all try to make them feel welcome and show them how great our forest city is.
I hate going after Natalie because she's always got these exciting slides. There's so many cool things that are going on in our core, and she's got Visa gift cards apparently. So thank you to all of our speakers tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with the folks who are on the town hall. I'm going to introduce Patty McKeag, who is our Director of Strategic Communications and Government Relations at City Hall, and she's going to be moderating our Q&A.
Thank you, Kelly, and good evening, everyone. I can see that we've got some questions lined up in the queue right now. Just as a reminder, if there are questions that you haven't yet typed in, you can use the Q&A feature, which is the kind of dialog box icon at the bottom of the screen. And what I'll be doing is I'll be reading out the questions that we have. If questions are similar, I'll combine them, but we'll do our best to provide answers to all of the questions that you've typed in. So I'm just going to start with a question about residents. And the question is, are residents currently being involved with seniors, such as Age-Friendly London, et cetera? So how are we connecting with those?
I can take that one, Patty. So we're actually working with our colleagues in neighborhood services to develop a resident-specific engagement strategy. And they actually are also the folks who are responsible for Age-Friendly London. So there'll be a good dovetail there with that work. We're a little behind where I would have liked to have been with this. Just with COVID, we wanted to make sure we had more opportunities to get together in person, but we will be launching something later this year to start having those conversations. We'll be looking at a multidimensional approach to make sure that seniors, students, new residents, we get a lot of young professionals who are interested in living in the core, all have ways to connect in the way that's meaningful and that have a voice at that table.
Thank you. We have a question about the Foot Patrol. So the Foot Patrol project from April 2021 was very successful. They noticed it firsthand on Richmond Street, even before seeing the numbers tonight. So they're wondering why it was concluded and how it would be possible to get it going all year round.
Yeah, Mary, thanks for your question. What it came down to essentially is the regular Foot Patrol schedule doesn't account for a 24-hour coverage. We just don't have enough officers on the unit to do a 24/7 coverage. So we relied on the patrol section sending us normally four officers on any given night. As we get kind of further into April, May, you get the nicer weather. We have more people taking vacation. The patrol sections just couldn't loan us the body. So that's basically why we had to conclude that.
Thank you. We have a question related to this security audit, and are consultants meeting with residents as well as meeting with businesses?
I can take that one, Patty. Certainly, we are meeting with a variety of people that live, work, and support the core area. That includes many of the agencies and services on our program tonight, as well as, literally being on the street and speaking with folks while they work in the core area, while they're out walking and traversing and experiencing the core area, and those that are living down there. So all of those aspects are being undertaken as part of the audit. And I may look to Patty if you're interested in providing some input, how we can obtain your contact information to connect with you after the event tonight.
Thank you, Dave. We have a question related also to the presentation that you made, Dave, around the Spotlight program. Are the closed circuit cameras, city-owned cameras that you're referencing, are they cameras owned and operated by individual property owners?
Yes, so these, in fact, the focus of the program will be on private property owner camera systems. We have signage in place related to all the public cameras in the core area. So the focus of this program will be directly on those private businesses and properties where cameras exist.
Thank you, Dave. We have a question related to programming in the core. Ryan, you mentioned the holiday market. Are there any other events or activities that you can share information about that are planned for the holiday season?
So we have the annual lighting of the lights, and I am not able to 100% confirm that that's happening in its normal function. Natalie, if you know better than me, please share.
It is, yeah. I'm not sure if it's the normal function, but it is happening on Friday, November the 26th, and more details will be released closer to the date.
Okay, yeah. And then the same night is the holiday CP train, and no, that's not happening. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and then the holiday market is going to be on Dundas Place, and then we will be continuing with the sort of standard outdoor musical activations. I mean, musicians aren't totally thrilled about playing outside in the cold, but we're paying them, so we'll find some. And I know there's going to be the market. Covent Garden Market is having a holiday market as well, and there's obviously the 100 Kellogg stuff happening further towards Old East Village, and yeah. So basically the center is the center of activity for my focus is going to be the holiday market on Dundas Place, with all the fun stuff happening in Victoria Park, which is also the skating and the skating at Covent Garden Market. So there's a good amount of stuff, and if anyone wants to get involved, by all means reach out, and we're happy to. We're always looking for new groups to be involved, and yeah, let me know.
Thank you, Ryan. Craig, this next question is for you. It's related to affordable housing and really looking at if the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment is about $1,300 now, and the city will supplement a portion of the rent under the affordable housing banner, it still might make it difficult for people to obtain affordable housings. So is it possible for you to provide just some insights into kind of the new build market rates and what is the affordable rent rate?
Sure, thanks, Patty. I'll try to touch on this. Housing affordability is really it's a hot topic lately, and I know the average market rent is really driven by supply and demand right now, and there's a lot more probably economists can say about some of that, but basics, it's driven by supply and demand. The work that we're doing at the city with some of the builds that are city-led are trying to keep the rental rates as low as possible. And a lot of that has to do with just the cost of building buildings, right? With COVID, with the different types of designs we're working with, the cost of building, we can reduce the cost of building that building, which then allows us to charge lower rents. And so rental, what's affordable for everybody is really very different. If you look at somebody that's like working minimum wage, $14 an hour, making about $29,000 a year, your average market rent, or what you should be able to, should be what we call affordable for you, would be around $850, right? So as we see and work with folks that are on fixed incomes like Ontario Works or ODSP or old age pension, their affordability is obviously much lower. So the other dynamic in this is that as we work with individuals to find housing and look at choice of housing, we also understand that we do some budgeting work with them. Like I say, we as in our service agencies in the system, but we work with them to understand sort of where they want to live, where their social supports are, work on a budget with what they can afford, and then work on the supplement from there. So that's a really roundabout way on a really complex topic, but affordability is really based on what an individual's income is, and then how a house or what an apartment can be charging is really based on supply and demand. But with the city builds, we're looking at cost of building that development, having a working pro forma on the space so that it doesn't go into disrepair, and then we charge the lowest rents that we can from there.
Thank you, Craig. I'm going to stay with you for the next question as well. Someone is looking just for some explanation on the term unsheltered homelessness and what that means. As a layperson, some people aren't familiar with what that is referencing.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that question. And really, it's individuals that sleep outside at night. And so we might hear the term sleeping rough, urban camping. We try to not, urban camping is not a great term we try to use anymore. It is people living on shelter. So they have no shelter to live. And so it's people you see sleeping in doorways, people sleeping under park benches, people that do have tents or other types of quasi-made structures. That is what we would classify as somebody living unsheltered.
Thank you, Craig. We have a comment now more than a question just about promoting events and really making sure that residents and the community has enough time to be made aware of them. I don't know, maybe Natalie, if you wanted to provide comment on that, and maybe Ryan, if you could also talk about how we try to promote the things that are happening in the core. Natalie, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Patty. Definitely. I think everyone wishes we could announce a lot sooner, but in COVID times with so many things changing all the time, it really is sometimes a last minute announcement. But, as things continue to open up and we're seeing restrictions lifted, we're hoping we can give a lot longer of a runway for event announcements moving forward. The best place though to go to see what is happening in the city is the Tourism London events calendar. So you can check out londontourism.ca/events. On there, you can filter by date and even by interest. So if there are some things that you're looking for, maybe you're a really big music fan. I saw live music pop up on that chat earlier, or that poll earlier, then maybe you want to filter up and see what music events are coming to the city.
Yeah, and I would just add that, kind of a lot of the programming that we did this summer was kind of new for the city. We don't have a long legacy of doing our own cultural programming like this in this way. So we did a lot of work kind of getting our systems figured out this summer. And obviously we're promoting on social media as much as possible. We were also trying to do like regular weekly things so people could just get used to it and know that every Friday night, every Saturday night, there's live music. And also as of September on Dundas Place anyways, we were doing a monthly program, and it took us a couple months to get that system figured out. But now we did a program for September and a program for October, and next spring we'll be doing a program for the whole summer is the intention. And so we can give people as much advance warning as possible.
Thanks very much to both of you. The next question is directed to you, Dave. During the comments around the security audit, you mentioned that it would include some private property. Is there a way for people who are either living in the downtown or own property that aren't part of businesses to get involved or to share their perspectives with you?
Thanks, Patty. Similar to what we talked about before, if there's a way to get your contact information from this process, we'd be happy to follow up with you in regard to providing input into the security audit. So not sure exactly how we can get that done, but I'm looking at our communications experts to help us along with that process.
Dave, I'll jump in here. So you're welcome to email communications at the city, and our email address is cocc@london.ca. So again, cocc@london.ca, and we can provide that information to Dave for you.
Thank you.
moving on to the next question, and I'm just scrolling through and making sure that I'm covering as many as possible. Here's a question around facilities being available at the front of City Hall. So will there be a Johnny on the spot installed in front of City Hall? I'm not sure who might want to, or who might have an answer for that, but I'll share it with you.
I think I'm the bathroom person now. There are, as far as I'm aware, there's no plans to put Johnny on the spot. Dave, are the public washrooms in City Hall accessible, but to the public? I don't think so right now.
We do have washrooms available on the second floor for those that are accessing City Hall for business purposes. There's also washrooms available in Victoria Park, not very far away, very close. So, and of course, you're aware of the washrooms available on Dundas Street. So different options available to folks depending on where they are.
Yeah, Victoria Park is the closest, and they're open extended hours now through the London Community Recovery Network. So that would be your best bet in that neck of the woods.
Great, thank you to both. It's information that I didn't have, so I appreciate it. We have a question now. We've talked a lot about addictions and challenges in the core that come with that. And here's a question on assistance available for people who may be addicted to nicotine. And that a lot of people who face other challenges also face this addiction as well. And is there any information you may have available to people who would want to act on that addiction or support somebody facing that? Craig, is that anything you might have insights on?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Patty. Interesting question. We as part of the kind of support plans that many of our agencies work with individuals on, any addictions that they do have, whether it's nicotine or an opioid or something else, we do work with them on treatment options and getting connected to those resources and the conversations, around some of the choices maybe that they're making in their day-to-day living. And so we look at a lot of getting people connected to methadone or on the opioid issue, and trying to support individuals as best we can in that. But I have on that one.
Yeah, I would also add that I know that our local health unit has a lot of information related to this as well. So I would recommend that people check their website out. It's healthunit.com, and that they have information related to that as well. So I'm going to move on to the next question. The Traditional Center of London, Dundas and Richmond has 3 or 4 empty storefronts right now. Is there work being done or any thoughts on what might be possible to address that?
Patty, I could start, then Ryan might have a few things to add. There's a bit of a two-pronged approach when it comes to dealing with vacancies. I know the BIA is working on some strategies to attract new businesses, especially small businesses, to some of the vacant storefronts. City staff also have direction from City Council to come back with a more comprehensive strategy about dealing with institutional, retail, and other vacancies in the core. And I believe that work plan is meant to be in front of City Council in the next couple of cycles of our general meetings. So that's what I know about it right now. Certainly, it's definitely on our radar. We're hoping as COVID ends, we'll be seeing some more interest in those spaces becoming occupied. And I know that the BIAs are working hard to attract new businesses, and city staff will be working on some of the policy pieces to support that.
Thanks, Kelly. We're down to, I think, the last question that we have in the queue. If there are any other questions, we still have some time to answer them. This one is also related to affordable housing and really looking at how, as a city, we can balance the need for affordable housing, kind of recognizing that there are a lot of luxury apartments or higher end, buildings being created in the city. What can we do to ensure that some of those revenues are going towards balancing and creating affordable housing? Craig, I'll send that one to you.
Sure. Thanks, Patty. I think that's a good question that many municipalities struggle with, and the balance that they have on tools that they use when they make decisions. Right. When we look at the affordable planning or affordable tools under the Planning Act, municipalities have opportunities to provide incentives, create community improvement plans around various topics that are important to municipalities. And so many of those tools are allow decision makers to incorporate different priorities in community. And so we have an affordable housing community improvement plan in the city. We do work quite closely with many developers on offering opportunities for affordable housing for bonusing. And there's other, provincial legislation with inclusionary zoning that our teams in the city are working through that do address many issues, including affordable housing.
Thank you, Craig. And that does come to the end of the questions that were submitted through the meeting and also afterwards. Kelly, I'll turn it over to you, and if there are any closing remarks, and I will just first remind people that if you were wanting to provide your information to Dave regarding the security audit, cocc@london.ca. Kelly, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Patty. Thank you to all of our panelists tonight. And thank you to those of you who've joined us, given up some of your evening to spend some time talking about issues and opportunity in the core. We will be reporting back to City Council on our progress this year, early in the new year, once we're able to compile all the information from the various projects and programs that were new or underway in the core over the course of 2021. Stay tuned for other opportunities to engage in forums such as this. Thank you so much and have a great night.